The Nintendo Switch has been out for over a month now, and I can't speak for everyone else, but I've been having a great time with this console. Sure, it helps that Breath of the Wild is one of the best and most successful games that Nintendo has ever produced. And hey, Bomberman Rising from the Ashes is nothing to scoff at either. But actually, a great source of my enjoyment has been from the Switch's eShop. And so, for my very first Nintendo Switch video, I wanted to do something a little bit different. You see, one of my favorite things that Nintendo has done lately has been the eShop, particularly on the 3DS, with just a bunch of great indie games that came out at a pretty steady pace. The Wii U did have an eShop as well, but and basically being dead set in the middle of new console hype, I picked up nearly every worthwhile downloadable game that was on the Switch's eShop. So hey, if you're done with the likes of Zelda, Bomberman, I don't know, even Lego City, here are 5 Nintendo Switch eShop games. First up is a little title that Nintendo themselves actually published, Sniffer Clips. Now this one really came out of nowhere, and thanks to its cute art style and it seemingly being the only game at launch to really take advantage of each Joy-Con being a separate controller for co-op, it actually made for a pretty great first impression. With a second person, each of you control one of these characters, Snip or Clip. That's cute. And you are armed with the ability to cut whatever shape that you are in out of the other person. And with that ability in hand, a wave of puzzles of different styles is thrown your way. Making one of you guys a hook to pull down a balloon so the other one can pop it, cooperative tilting to safely bring an egg to its nest, trying to slam dunk a really heavy bowling ball, and yes, lots of failing, and lots of arguing between friends. The final result is undoubtedly really fun, but this is a game that is essentially required to have a second person to play. You can play single player, but like, it's really annoying. If you do have someone to play this with, the main game can be a really good gaming afternoon. And on top of that, there's even a mode for 4 players that's actually okay with only 2 people, offering up even more puzzles, and even some competitive games, which are really neat as well. I mean, for basically half of the main game, you're gonna be slicing each other to hell anyway. Why not give it its own mode? Snipper Clips, to the death. Overall, Snipper Clips isn't amazing, but it certainly does a better job being a fun multiplayer Switch experience than 1-2 Switch was. That's for sure. Next up is a return to Shovel Knight with its newest DLC, Specter of Torment. Now, by the time you're watching this adventure is already available to all consoles, and quite frankly, if you have still yet to purchase Shovel Knight, you really should get on that already. But what was really neat was that Specter of Torment was actually a Switch exclusive for the first month. Sure, it may not be much, but it was still some sort of reward for actually being an early adopter for the console. This time around, you play as Specter Knight, whose duty is to recruit all of the other knights to join in the Enchantress's Order of No Quarter. So actually, the story is a prequel. And man, I'll keep this really simple for you guys. Specter Knight is just so much fun to play as. His scythe has the ability to dash through enemies, and that combined with the typical slashing and even some wall jumping, ah man, it is just so much fun from beginning to end. There's even a totally new and remixed soundtrack from the original composer, Jay Kaufman, and it is so good. In line with this mode's release, Shovel Knight did go up in price from $20 to $25, but with currently 3 full campaigns, some extras like amiibo support and a mission mode, and even more content to come, this is still one of the best values in modern 2D platforming. This was also the debut of Body Swap mode, so now you can make all of the knights female. I mean, really, it just changes the sprites and like a little bit of dialogue, but it's amazing. Now, I will probably look at Shovel Knight again once the package is finally complete. I wanted to talk about it briefly because as someone who bought a Nintendo Switch at launch, I got to play Specter of Torment 1 month before everyone else could. That was pretty cool. Suckers, you should have bought a Nintendo Switch. I don't know where I'm going with this. Now, this is a game that definitely came out of left field. Blaster Master was a classic back on the NES, and while there were plenty of decent sequels, plenty more than Star Tropics, no, I'm not gonna let that go, when Inti Creates of Mega Man 9 and Azure Striker Gunvolt fame announced Blaster Master Zero, oh boy, I got pumped. If anybody was going to do it right, it would be these guys. And yeah, they did it right. For those uninformed about what Blaster Master is, this is a game with two very distinct styles. There's side-scrolling platforming inside of the tank Sophia the Third, which is sort of like a Metroidvania style, and at the simple push of a button, the commander, Jason, jumps out of the tank and goes into caves where things become top-down. It may seem like a clash of styles, but since you're just shooting and blowing up robots the entire time, and the music is consistently really good, it's such a good time all around, and it is easily the most faithful sequel to the original the series has seen yet. There was actually a Blaster Master 2 on the Sega Genesis, but, I mean, look at this. Looks weird. Despite being one of the best games in the series, it's not perfect. Zero really tries to be way more than it needed to be. Both Sophia the Third and Jason are given a wide plethora of weapons, which sounds really neat, but there is just no reason to ever use more than, say, 2 of them unless you just feel like changing things up for the sake of it. For Jason, you unlock gun upgrades by collecting orbs, and taking damage reduces the number of weapons you have available. It's a pretty neat concept, but the game is honestly fairly easy, so once you get the most powerful blaster that shoots through walls, you could just mow down enemies and bosses without much thought. The only time things got even somewhat difficult was at the very end of the game. Everything else, despite being really fun, was super easy. Other than that, this game is a great return to form and an absolute blast. I don't know, was that corny? That was corny, wasn't it? Alright. Essentially an enhanced port of Fast Racing Neo on Wii U, here is Fast RMX. I'm like 95% sure that's supposed to stand for remix. Basically, if you're out there clamoring for a new F-Zero, this is the next best thing. Fast isn't just the title. This game goes very fast. The acceleration of these vehicles goes from 0 to phew in like 2 seconds. And not only do you need to safely get to first place, you also have to collect these orbs to fill up a boost meter, as well as swap between 2 colors to activate boost floors and ramps. Your mind needs to be moving at all times to even consider completing the track, let alone coming out on top. And combined with the graphics that are like way too good and need to be kinda seen to be believed, man, this game is just pure fun. There's a sense of flow that you get when you really get in control of your car and you nail boosts and turns perfectly. And naturally, there's an online mode for this as well, a must-have for a game like this. The only thing is, it's not all new content. Most of it is coming from the Wii U game, but even still, it is hard to deny how worth it this game is, especially when you consider the Switch's main selling point, portability. So not only does this game already look and play outstandingly, it's also technically the most impressive portable racing game ever made. And hell, if anything, as far as I'm concerned, these are the guys who should work on the next F-Zero game. The games are already gonna get compared regardless of developer, so just make it easy for everyone. New F-Zero is a blatant ripoff of Fast RMX, I can see it now. Last up, we have the most recent digital sensation, Snake Pass, a game composed by David Wise of Donkey Kong Country fame. If that's not enough to sell you on it, I guess I can talk about the game itself. So this one is certainly interesting. It is a puzzle platformer, I guess? You control this snake, named Noodle, that's adorable, and you traverse these tiny sandbox areas to collect a bunch of stuff, move on to the next level, and do it all over again. The kicker though is that you have to think like a snake. See, if you just accelerate and don't move, you go super slow, but you start slithering back and forth and hey, look at that, look at him move! There are also these bamboo canes all over the place that you can climb by twisting yourself around them, which is done by properly raising or lowering your head, basically the equivalent of a regular platformer's jumping. With such an original control scheme, you gotta keep your mind active the entire time, and safe to say that it is a very original idea, executed really well, almost too well. The game is designed around this concept perfectly, but I'll be damned, it gets awfully frustrating at times. One false misstep and hey, back to the checkpoint for you. The camera can be a complete pain too, look at this. Look at this, the whole challenge of getting this coin is I can't see. Ultimately, these are fairly minor annoyances, and aside from those, this game is worth playing just for the unique style alone. And hey, it helps that graphically, it looks really good too. When I first saw this game, I thought it would be some random, crudely done platformer just to be like, hey, we have Yooka-Laylee coming out, here's another cutesy character. But you know what, I'll be damned. The team at Sumo Digital, they did a great job. Also, once again, David Wise composed the soundtrack. You may as well buy the game just knowing that. You see? And people said the Switch had no games. And sure, none of these games match the scope of Breath of the Wild, obviously, but it doesn't matter. I put more time into the Switch in the first month than I initially thought I would, and with plenty more indie games that have been announced, and of course the inevitable lineup of first-party games, I think the Switch is gonna be a-okay. I know at least a few of you out there have been wondering how my first month with the Switch has gone, so there you go. Now, if you don't mind, you're all taking up precious time I could be spending playing Persona 5, so I'm gonna go do that now.